last year. I thought they had one of the best drafts in the NFL last year. I think you can say that again this year.
All right, let's do the AFC. Starting with the AFC East, Nick, the Bills.
Buffalo Bills. All right. I think I'm going to give them a C+. They traded back with the Chiefs and gave them Xavier Worthy. We'll get to that in a bit. They got Keon Coleman at the top of the second. So they did address receiver. Cole Bishop at safety. Their defensive line got just raked in the offseason with their cap situation. So going heavy defense here was the right move. Dwayne Carter from Duke. Not going to say the guy's name in the fifth round from Washington. Daquan Hardy from Penn State, all right corner for them. Keon Coleman, he's a good receiver, potential first-rounder. Buffalo probably just thought he was their guy at that point, so I'm not going to harp on him too much. I'll give them a C+. It was kind of an average draft for me.
I'm going to go ahead and give these – Go for it, Evan.
All right. I'm going to go B-. You traded with the Chiefs to give them Xavier Worthy. Whenever you trade with a rival like that, never really a good choice. But they got their guy, Keon Coleman, who I've been saying for a long time that they should target. He fits in perfectly with what they needed at wide receiver. Cole Bishop, safety, in the second round, helps their safety depth with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer gone. They drafted Ray Davis, decent running back from Kentucky. Cedric Van Pran in the fifth round. I think he could be a starting center for them in the future. And then shout out Travis Clayton from the International Pathway Program. Never heard of that, but
I've also never heard of that until right now.
All right, I'm gonna have to give him a. I'm gonna go ahead and give him a C. I like Keon Coleman a lot. He's a big, physical, monstrous, athletic receiver. So getting him at 33 is good. But once again, I'm just really kind of wondering about this A.D. Mitchell slide here. My biggest complaint, though, is once again them. Both of you mentioned it, but it truly is my biggest complaint is them trading back with the Saints and allowing the Saints or the Chiefs, allowing the Chiefs to get one of the fastest football players in the world. I don't like that, and I'm annoyed and angry. So, yeah. Other than that, I'll give him a C.
All right, Nick. Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins. Okay. I think I'm going to give them a C. Purely because I am confused, but also not on the Chop Robinson pick. Because it's they don't really need edge help, but also a lot of their edge rushers got hurt late last year. So Chop Robinson's probably going to be a day one starter until those guys return from their injuries. But it's not really they addressed offensive line in the second round with Patrick Paul. They got Jalen Wright in the fourth. He's a good running back. He had that play against Georgia. It was first play of the game, took a run to the house. So I'm sure you all have seen that. He was pretty good for Tennessee this past year. Got Malik and Taj Washington. Don't know if they're related. Probably not, considering Malik went to Virginia and Taj went to USC. They're both receivers, though. Muhammad Kamara, I thought was pretty interesting. I watched the Colorado State-Colorado game last year when Colorado was the darlings of college football before losing 7 games in a row or whatever it was. And Muhammad Kamara was eating them alive before he got injured. So I've been watching some of this film. I thought he was a pretty underrated edge rusher, so them getting him as well, I thought was pretty cool. I just don't think they address positions of need super great, so I'm going to give them a C.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a B-. I agree they didn't really draft positions of need, but I like Chop Robinson as a player. Super athletic guy. And you do have Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips coming off of major injuries, so he'll probably be in that rotation with them. Patrick Paul in the second round, I like him as a tackle, developmental tackle who eventually could start once Teron Armstead leaves. I like him. Jalen Wright as a running back in the fourth round. He was my second running back, but I mean, you already have Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, but Wright's a good running back, so he'll be in there with that. He's fast, which is the Dolphins' MO. Kamara, like you said, a good depth edge piece from Colorado State. And then Malik Washington, who was the second highest graded wide receiver in PFF in 2023, behind only Malik Neighbors, which is interesting. I didn't know that. But he's somebody who I think could be a sneaky pick. And then they just like to get speed. So they got a lot of guys who are fast with running back and wide receiver, which is what they usually do. So B- for them.
I'll give him a B. I think Chop Robinson was a solid pick for the edge for him. I actually do like the Jalen Wright pick, running back out of Tennessee. Real fast guy. I think he's a really good back, and I think that Raheem Mostert is like 33, so I think Jalen Wright will be a solid guy to step in.
They do have
for him.
Devon Achane, though, too.
Well, yeah, but you still, I mean, it's good to have a 1-2 punch in the NFL. You don't normally see backs, unless it's Derrick Henry or something. But I don't know. I'll give them a B overall. I think they had a solid draft.
All right, Nick, Jets.
New York Jets. I thought the Jets had a pretty good draft. Olufashinu at 11. I thought they were going to go Brock Bowers when he fell to that point, but they took tackle. They desperately needed tackle. They need protection for Aaron Rodgers after him tearing his Achilles last year. Malachi Corley in the third round I thought was a good addition to their receiving core. Braylon Allen to back up Breece Hall. I think Braylon Allen's a fantastic running back from Wisconsin. I wanted the Colts to get him. We'll get to them in a minute, but I wanted the Colts to draft him. Jordan Travis in the 5th round is interesting. Obviously had a fantastic year last year before his knee shattered on him. So hopefully it was either his knee or his leg. He had a pretty significant leg injury. Though towards the end of last year, famously kept Florida State out of the playoff after being undefeated. But yeah, I thought they had a pretty good draft. I'll give them a B+, I think.
I'm going to piggyback off that and give him a B+ as well. I really, really like the Fashanu pick at 11. That's going to be huge for Aaron Rodgers. Getting him some protection is great. Going receiver in the 3rd. I think overall these guys had a pretty solid draft. I mean, Jordan Travis, yeah, it's slightly interesting, but if Jordan Travis can return to form, then he'll be a good guy to step in after Rodgers. They didn't really have a lot of picks, but I really like what they did in the 1st round, so I'll give them a B+.
I'm going to go with an A- for them. I really liked the pick of Olufashinu. We've talked about it. If Joe Alt wasn't in this draft, he would be the first tackle off the board. Getting him at 11, he can play both guard and tackle. I think he's a really good pick. And then they got, in the 3rd and 4th round, 2 guys that I've been very high on and were kind of sleepers for me, and Malachi Corley and Braylon Allen. Corley is a super versatile wide receiver. He kind of is like a Deebo Samuel type guy where he can play a little bit of running back and wide receiver, so they'll probably use him in some interesting ways with jet sweeps and stuff. And then Braylon Allen, I super high on him. He's only 20 years old. He's built like a truck. I think he has a lot of potential, and I think he could be a really nice power back behind Breece Hall in the future. And then I like their 5th round pick in corner Quintaz Stiggers from the CFL. He has a very interesting journey to the NFL. If you haven't checked it out, he skipped college, went straight to the CFL. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year there. I think he's a solid depth piece at corner, and it could potentially be a starter at some point. But I like the draft a lot, so A- for me there. Pats, Nick.
New England Patriots. Drake May, I thought was clearly the number 2 QB on the board for me personally. I think his concerns are a bit overblown. I get he's a bit inconsistent, but you can teach defensive reading and stuff at the NFL level. You can't teach the nuclear arm and mobility that Drake May has. That's not something you can just teach a quarterback. So I think that the Patriots will develop him pretty well. I love Drake May. I think they got their guy for the next 10 or so years. Jalen Polk in the second round, I thought was a little bit of a reach, personally, with A.D. Mitchell still being there. So I don't love that pick. They addressed some offensive line. They got Joe Milton in the sixth round, which I thought was interesting. I think I'll give them overall. The Drake May was really good. The rest of the draft was kind of eh. But they got their guy at quarterback, so I'm going to give them a B, I think.
I'm going to give the Patriots a B+. I actually really like the Patriots draft. Drake May is definitely their guy, as Nick said. I like Drake May a lot. Love that pick in the first round. My biggest complaint with this draft is Jalen Polk at 37. Once again, why are you not taking A.D. Mitchell? I don't understand why he fell. That's my biggest complaint. But either way, Jalen Polk's a good receiver still. They definitely needed him. I just don't get why they didn't get A.D. Mitchell. Going offensive line for multiple picks is awesome. I really like the Patriots draft a lot. I'm a big fan of this draft. Going tight end in the seventh round even. I like it a lot. I think they did a really good job. I'm going to give them a B+.
So I give the Pats a B+. I like the Drake May pick. He was my QB2. Getting Jalen Polk in the second round. Yes, they drafted him over A.D. Mitchell, which is questionable. But I think Polk's a good receiver. They just really need receiver help. And then in round 4, they got Javon Baker, who I really like. I think he has wide receiver 1 potential. And he had a funny quote. He said, you guys better get your popcorn ready because I make people in wheelchairs stand up, which I thought was pretty funny. And then you drafted Joe Milton in the 6th round. He has a phenomenal arm, but he's a very developmental guy. And then yeah, so B+ for them. All right, AFC North. Weave, you want to start this one off with the Ravens?
With the Ravens? All right, let me see.
I'll go next. Then Nick, you go first.
All right, so Baltimore Ravens. Overall, I think they had a pretty good draft. I'll give them a B. Going corner in the first round, that's going to be a huge help for them in the secondary. They took a hit on the defensive side this year in free agency, so that's going to help them tackle linebackers, receivers. I think they had a pretty solid draft. Nothing like crazy notable, I don't think, but solid. I'll give them a B.
All right, I'm giving them an A-. They got Nate Wiggins at 30, who he's very very thin frame, so that's a little bit concerning. But he's got elite closing speed, good press. He got an 84.9 coverage grade over the last 2 years. I think he's going to be a pretty solid guy. Then they got tackle Roger Rosengarten in the second round. I think he's going to be their starting right tackle day one. He's really good. Then you get an edge and Adisa Isaac from Penn State. He's decent. Then you get Tez Walker from North Carolina. He's got boomer bust potential at receiver. Then TJ Tampa in the 4th round, I think, is one of the biggest steals in the draft. I had like a second round grade on him, and he goes in the 4th round at pick 130. He's highly skilled corner. I think that just improves their secondary a lot. So yeah, I think they kind of hit this draft out of the park. So I gave him a A-.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give them an A. I think they had a phenomenal draft. I think they had one of the best drafts in the NFL. Nate Wiggins at 30, without trading at all, is fantastic. I love Adisa Isaac from Penn State. TJ Tampa, you touched on it, one of the biggest steals of the draft. I cannot believe he fell to pick 130. They also buffed up some O-lineman help with Roger Rosengarten from Washington. There's potential that they might have gone with a tackle in the first round, but Nate Wiggins was too good of a player to pass up in a position that they could use. Yeah, I think that they had a fantastic draft from top to bottom. 9 picks for them. They did pretty solid on, I'd say, 7 or 8 of them. So I'm going to give them an A. I thought they had one of the best drafts in the league.
All right, Browns, we've.
All right, I'm going to give the Browns a I'll give them a B minus. They had like 4 or 5 picks, so they didn't really do anything. But they got Michael Hall in the second round, which is a good pick for their defensive line. They went guard from Michigan in the third. Yeah, I mean that they there's not much here. I mean, they have like 5 picks, but I think their first 2 picks are solid, boosting the trenches for them. That's kind of the Browns' MO. So I'll give them a B minus.
I give him a C plus. They drafted Michael Hall in the second round. He's very young, a developmental defensive tackle, but he does have high upside for as an interior pass rusher. And then I think their best pick was third round, getting Zach Center from Michigan. He is a really great guard. I think he could start for them sooner rather than later. He is coming off of a knee injury that he suffered, but I think he's a heck of a player. And then you got receiver depth in Jamari Thrash, so they could use some linebacker, corner, and then they got a guy from UC Weave, Jawan Briggs in the seventh round.
Yeah, they got him in the
They
seventh.
draft, like you said, they only had 5-6 picks, so C plus for me.
I think I'm going to give them a C minus. I'm not that huge of a fan of their draft, to be full on honest with you. Michael Hall at 54 it's very, very boomer bust. We watched him at Ohio State. He's high at potential, but he is low on production. He didn't actually do a whole lot on the defensive line at Ohio State. I think Zach Zenter is a good pick. His knee got basically shredded against Ohio State, though. That is a real concern for me at the guard position. But if he can stay healthy, I think he'll be good for them. But other than that, after that, they didn't have another pick till the 5th round. They only had 6 picks overall. That's what happens when you give a sexual predator $230 million.
Yep.
And what will probably go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. The Browns are still
the Panthers last year.
Yeah, the Browns are still reeling from that decision that they made. I don't love their draft at all. I think it's very hit or miss with only 2 of their 6 guys. So I'm going to give them a C minus.
All right, Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers actually had a very good draft, and I can't stand the Steelers, and they should be deleted permanently. But they had a good draft. This is a garbage franchise. They took a tackle in the first who is a stud, and I know is going to end up being a monster because the Bengals passed up on him and the Steelers got him. So this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer probably. They went they heavily went offensive line here. Center in the second. They got Roman Wilson in the third. I mean, he's a solid receiver. Actually, he's not bad. I actually think the Steelers did really well here. They heavily addressed the trenches. I like this draft a lot. Screw them. B plus.
Yeah, I gave them an A. They got Troy Fatanu at pick 20, who was my third ranked offensive tackle. I don't know how I felt at 20, but absolute steal for them there. Zach Frazier from West Virginia, center. He's an absolute mauling center. He's probably going to start sooner rather than later. Roman Wilson, great route runner, helps their receiver depth, which they needed pretty badly. Then Peyton Wilson at linebacker in the third. He has a lot of injury concern, but if he stays healthy, he's the best linebacker in this class. Getting him at the end of the third round, I think, is a great pick too. Then you get another guard, Mason McCormick from where is he? South Dakota State, who had a 90.3 PFF grade. Then they got corner depth, defensive line depth. They hit this draft out of the park, which is very annoying, like they have been the last couple of years. So A for them.
Last year I said the Steelers had the best draft in the league. I think you can make an argument for it again this year. They're going to get an A plus from me. They won't go away. I don't understand this. Their biggest need by far was offensive line, and they drafted 2 day 1 starters in the first 2 rounds. Troy Fatanu at 20. Don't know how he fell to 20. And the thing that pick does for me, not just that he's a very good tackle, he's very versatile. He can play guard too, if he absolutely has to. He can play anywhere on that offensive line. Zach Frazier, like Evan alluded to, mauling center. Peyton Wilson, if he can stay healthy, obviously best linebacker in this class by a wide margin. Roman Wilson, good route runner. Mason McCormick, good depth piece of the offensive line. They did exactly what they needed to do in this draft. I love their draft. Again, they're getting an A+ from me.
All right, we've the Bengals.
Okay. The Bengals. I am going to be giving the Bengals an A. I genuinely believe the Bengals have one of the best
There's
drafts.
no way you think the Bengals had a better draft than Pittsburgh.
I think they had one of the best drafts in the NFL. I loved the Bengals draft this year. Amarius Mims in the first round is a good pick. I kind of prefer or wish they would have taken Mims, or not Mims, the guy the Steelers took. But I think this Mims guy is going to be a solid guy to step in. He'll probably be a backup this year. He's a bit of a project, but he's massive, so I like him. Chris Jenkins in the second. I love this guy. Great pick. He'll be a huge help on the defensive line. Now, this one I actually really like a lot. Jermaine Burton from Alabama. I like this pick. I saw a lot of things that said if it wasn't for some like off-field issues, like I've seen that he's like a pretty emotional guy. So that kind of leads into some on-field penalties and maybe some off-field issues as well. But if it wasn't for that, I've seen that this guy would have been a first-round receiver probably. He's a very talented receiver. He's more of a slot, I think, type of guy. He's like 6 foot, 190 maybe. He's fast. He's got good hands, good route runner. I love this pick for the Bengals in the third. Overall, I think the Bengals had a phenomenal draft. I really do. I think this draft class, if these players hit, I think this draft class could set the tone for the next several years with the Bengals franchise. So hopefully they know what they're doing, and hopefully it hits. I will say my really just my biggest complaint. Oh, crap. My biggest complaint with this draft is taking a tight end from Iowa in the fourth over Cade Stover, and then the Texans immediately trading up and taking Cade Stover. I think that was definitely a blunder. I don't know why they did not take Cade Stover there. But other than that, I think this is an A. I love this draft.
I'm giving him a B+. 18 Amarius Mims was kind of what we thought was going to be the pick. He's a developmental tackle. He's massive. He fits exactly what the Bengals tackles have been. Obviously with Trent Brown and Orlando Brown. And then Chris Jenkins in the second round, that's my favorite pick for the Bengals this year. I think he's an absolute stud. 87.2 run defensive grade in 2022, which was 5th in Power 5 interior defenders, and then 3rd among Big Ten interior defenders. The Bengals' biggest need is run help on the D-line, and Chris Jenkins fits that perfectly. He's super strong. I think he's going to be really good, and he's going to be in the rotation day one. Jermaine Burton, I like him as well. Like Zach said, he slid a bit because of some off-the-field concerns, but he's a 3-level skill set with great explosiveness, impressive ball skills, and I think he's going to be really well with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and with Joe Burrow throwing the ball. The McKinley Jackson pick I didn't really like. I think that was a reach. He's a project guy, but, I mean, developmental pass rusher, we'll see. Eric All, I actually liked this pick. I think he's a potential long-term starter for them. He was the 3rd best tight end on PFF's board, and I agree. I think tight ends from Iowa I think are really good. He's a great blocker. He's a good route runner as well. And then Josh Newton from TCU in the 5th, good corner depth there. And then we went and double dipped with tight end with Tanner McLaughlin who is more of an athletic tight end, and he'll be more of a receiving tight end. So I like that pick as well. Cedric Johnson and at the edge, he's a very good edge rusher, adds depth with potentially Trey Hendrickson leaving. And then one of my favorite picks in the draft for the Bengals was their 7th round pick, actually, getting Matt Lee, center from Miami, Florida. He was PFF's highest ranked center, and he fell to the 7th round. And I think he's going to be a starter one day, and I think absolute swing for the fences, and I think could hit very well for them in the 7th round. The only thing is with this draft is it's very boom or bust. This could be, like we've said, one of the better drafts that the Bengals have had, or it could not work out. A lot of boom or bust guys, but overall, I like it. B+.
I think that I will give them an A-. I also am a big fan of their draft. I just don't think he was better than Pittsburgh's, but I think the Bengals did really well. I think that Amarius Mims is a little very boomer bust, but if he hits, oh boy. Like, if he didn't allow a single sack at Georgia when he played. He just didn't play as much as he would like to. He has real injury issues. Chris Jenkins, phenomenal run stopper on the D-line, which is exactly what Cincinnati needed. Jermaine Burton in the 3rd round, speedster. Kind of questionable for me because I think Jamar Chase is kind of their speedster guy, but if they do end up losing T. Higgins, Jamar Chase can kind of go into that 50-50 guy, and then Jermaine Burton can take over for the deep route, the deep threat. I think that was great in the 3rd round. Eric All in the 4th round. Iowa grows tight ends they're on trees. So I think that'll end up being a very good pick for the Bengals. And I love that you touched on Matt Lee in the 7th round. PFF's best ranked center. Very well could be an NFL starter one day, which is in the 7th round. That is phenomenal. That is a home run if you can draft an NFL starter in the 7th round. I really like what they did this draft. So I'm going to give them an A-.
Yeah, Matt Lee was graded higher than JPJ, who
that is wild.
Was consensus one of the best offensive linemen in this draft. We got him in the 7th.
You knocked it out of the park, man. I'm telling you, the Bengals had a heck of a draft this year, man. I haven't been this happy about a Bengals draft since Burrow's class, probably Burrow's class.
Unfortunately, though, every time the Bengals have a good draft, the rest of the
Ravens and the Steelers had just as good of a draft, though.
Yeah,
so
very
it's
very annoying. But all right, moving on to the AFC South. Nick, I'll let you do this. Texans first.
Houston Texans. All right, thanks for not going to the Texans when I click them. Give me just a second. No.
We was going to give them an A because they drafted Kate Stover.
Yeah, and Sketch announced that they drafted Kate Stover. Shout out Sketch. I thought the Texans had a good draft. I think I'll give them a B. I think Kamari Lassiter. They didn't have a 1st-round pick, but I mean they didn't really need it. I thought Kamari Lassiter was going to be great for them in the secondary. Kalen Bullock, a lot of people had as their best safety, got him in the 3rd round. I thought that was pretty solid. Cade Stover, good in the 4th round. Blake Fisher, solid tackle from Notre Dame. I thought they did pretty well. I don't think they drafted any guy that's going to make immediate monster impact, but they got some pretty solid depth pieces at places of need. And they already pretty much are set to win now. So, and now they are setting up to be successful in the future. So the Texans are going to be here, I think, for the next decade, maybe better part of it. And yeah, I thought they had a good draft. I'll give them a B.
Do you want me to go or you?
I'll go. We might have to speed it up a little bit here.
We're almost division.
I've got the Texans with a B. I think they had a pretty solid draft here. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I love the Cade Stover pick. I think Cade Stover is a really good tight end. And getting him back with C.J. Stroud is going to be awesome. So I think the Texans made a good pick there. I think overall, yeah, they had a pretty solid pick or draft, filled some holes. They got the Lassiter corner in the 2nd. I think it's a solid draft, so I'll give them a B.
Yeah, I'm giving him a B as well. I like the Kamari Lassiter pick. I think he could very easily could have been a 1st-round corner. Blake Fisher in the 2nd. Again, depth tackle. Can never have too many of those.
Kalen Bullock, like Nick said, was a top-ranked safety. Kate Stover, who adds to their tight end depth behind Dalton Schultz. He was Stroud's teammate, so they already got that chemistry. So, yeah, overall, like Nick said, with the picks that they had, they just got a lot of depth. They're already a win-now team, so B for them. All right, Jags, Nick.
Jaguars. I think I'm going to give the Jags a B minus. I love Brian Thomas in the first round. The first round. I thought Brian Thomas was very good for them. They lost Calvin Ridley. Hopefully, a replacement for him. Mason Smith in the second round from LSU. I thought he was a good defensive lineman. Outside of that, the rest of their draft was kind of like okay. It was average for me, so I'm not going to bump them up too much. I really like their first 2 rounds, so I'll give them a B minus.
I'm going to go ahead and give these guys a B as well because I really, really like the Brian Thomas pick a lot. He's going to be a stud for him. Getting him with Trevor Lawrence is going to be awesome for them because I think the Jags kind of had a weaker receiving core the past couple of years here, to be honest with you. So I think this is going to help Trevor Lawrence a lot. So hopefully we'll see where this goes for him. But I think they had a B.
Yeah, I'm going to go B minus. I love Brian Thomas. He's one of my favorite receivers in this draft. I think he has wide receiver 1 upside, and I think with him, Gabe Davis, and Christian Kirk, it's going to allow the Jags to be more of a vertical downfield team rather than how they were last year where they threw a lot of short stuff, check down, and stuff like that. And I think that's going to unlock Trevor Lawrence a lot. Mason Smith, I think he's a good D tackle. They could use some depth there. And then, yeah, nothing really to write home about with the rest of the draft. Just got some depth pieces, so B minus for them. All right, Nick, your Colts.
Yeah, the Colts. I'm giving them an A. I think that last year I thought they had one of the best drafts in the NFL last year. I think you could say that again this year. I don't think their class was as good as last year. The Latu pick, we reacted to it live. At first, I was kind of questioning it. The more that I look into it, the more that I love that pick. Because if you've watched the tape of this dude, he is a freak as a defense, on the edge. He is unbelievable on the edge. And that wasn't even their best pick of the draft. One round later, A.D. Mitchell just fell into our lap at 52. I cannot believe that he is going to be an Indianapolis Colt. I am ecstatic thinking about the stuff that Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen are going to do with A.D. Mitchell. They got some O-line depth with Matt Goncalves, Tanner Bortolini. Anthony Gold was the best returner in college football last year, and they just changed the kickoff rules. So that could be a little secret weapon for them. The big thing with me is they didn't really address corner, which I thought they needed to. They drafted Micah Abraham in the 6th round. They also drafted Jalen Simpson in the 5th round, who can play corner. But, I mean, you got Houston loading up with receivers, and the Jags just drafted Brian Thomas. I hope they go sign like a Xavier Howard or maybe a Stephon Gilmore again. Give them some vet help in the secondary. They also didn't really address running back, which I know they have Jonathan Taylor. But Jonathan Taylor's 28, and he's the youngest running back in their room. So I probably would have liked to see them draft. Well, I mean, we talked about it earlier. I would have loved to see them draft Braylon Allen. But, I mean, added some O-line depth. Latu's a freak. A.D. Mitchell was, in my opinion, the best pick of the draft at 52 for Indianapolis. I thought they had a fantastic draft again. PFF gave him an A+. I don't think it's quite that good, but I thought they had a really good draft, so I'm going to give them an A.
I'm gonna give these guys a B+. I would also agree that they had a really good draft. I'm a huge fan of what they did. I'm not totally sold on the Latu or whatever his name is pick. I think when you had Dallas Turner and some of the other really every single corner sitting there, I don't know about this guy. We'll see. But I love the A.D. Mitchell pick. Finally, someone takes him. I don't know why the heck he fell.
Yeah, also, shout out to Chris Ballard for sticking up for the kid.
Yeah.
I don't understand why every single GM wanted to harp on a 22-year-old for character issues. Like, I don't understand that.
I think the fact that A.D. Mitchell slipped out of so many teams' hands is a massive blunder by a lot of teams that needed a receiver. I have no idea why he was even here for the Colts to take, but I love that pick. I'm a huge fan of this guy, and that's going to be a little bit scary for this Colts offense, adding A.D. Mitchell here.
Yeah, it is.
As long as Anthony Richardson actually ends up being good, because the jury's still out there. But overall, I like this draft a lot. I think the Colts did a really good job. B+.
Yeah, I give him an A. I think if Latu's healthy, he's the best pass rusher in this draft, and all signs are pointing to that he's healthy. I'm pretty sure when he went in for his medicals at the combine and at pro days and stuff, it all checked out pretty well. And then, like you both said, A.D. Mitchell was a steal. I think he's going to be a phenomenal plug-and-play wide receiver. He's just going to help Anthony Richardson so much. He has wide receiver one potential. He's super athletic. He's just really good. And then, like you said, Nick, get some offensive line depth there in the picks 3 and 4. I agree. I would have liked them to see them address corner, but it's just the board didn't fall that way. But overall, I mean, for the second year in a row, they hit the draft out of the park. So A for me. All right, Titans, last one in this division.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give the Titans a C. I thought that J.C. Latham going tackle in the first round was very obviously the correct pick. I just thought J.C. Latham was a little bit of a reach at number 7, but he's very good. He's shot up draft boards after the combine and after his pro day. After that, though, it was a lot more questionable for me. Tavondre Sweat is good, but they don't really need defensive line help with Jeffrey Simmons. And after that, they didn't really get a guy that I look at and jumps off the board at me. So I think that it was kind of all right, especially because Devondre Sweat just got arrested on a DUI charge. So we'll see what that does. It was a little bit questionable for me. Putting my Titans bias aside, I'm not a huge fan of their draft. I'll give them a C.
All right. I'm also going to be giving these guys a C. I just don't think they did anything notable other than J.C. Latham. I think that was a pretty solid pick because they desperately needed a tackle, and J.C. Latham's a really solid tackle. I don't know. Tavondre Sweat's a great defensive tackle, so I mean, bolstering the trenches, you can't really go wrong there. But overall, I don't think they really did anything of note, so I'm going to give them a C.
I gave him a B minus. I think the Latham pick was a little bit of a reach. I probably would have gone Fatanu. But I like the Devondre Sweat pick. Yes, he just had a DUI, but when he's playing, I think he's pretty good. He's a massive man. And like we said, you never have too many in the trenches. 5th round, get Jarvis Brownlee from Louisville, good depth corner. But really, other than that, nothing to write home about this draft. So B minus.
All right, last division. We'll do the AFC West. We kind of hinted at this. Who wants to start with the Chiefs?
You got it, Evan.
All right. The Chiefs. I give them a B+. I mean, you get Xavier Worthy, who ran a 4.21, which is the record, and the 40 traded up to get him. The rich get richer. You now have 3 very fast receivers on that team with Patrick Mahomes, which I hate. And then you draft Kingsley Suamataia in the 2nd round, who I think is a good tackle. He's really good at pass blocking. I think he could become a starter one day. You get Jared Wiley in the 4th, who is a really good tight end. He's super reliable. I think he's a good backup tight end. I mean, really, just the Xavier Worthy pick alone kind of just puts them pretty good. I mean, whenever you can add weapons to a wide receiver room that was really bad, I mean, that's going to help them.
It's not that terrible now.
No, the Chiefs look primed to go to another Super Bowl, which is I hate.
We'll see. I don't know. It's going to be tough to three-peat, but I'm going to give these guys a B. I think that getting Xavier Worthy is just absolutely unfair for this team. Getting offensive line help is great for Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they don't need any fancy superstars on this team. They're just kind of filling holes and helping out Mahomes in whatever way he wants. So getting Xavier Worthy was awesome, but I'll give him a B plus outside of the whole draft.
I think I'll give them a B plus as well. Getting Xavier Worthy as a cheat code. Don't know why the Bills did that. It gave Andy Reid the fastest player in combine history. I don't want to go too deep into combine results, but he is a rocket as a receiver. Kingsley Somataya in the second round. Good tackle depth. Other than that, like you said, they're kind of just filling holes. But getting Xavier Worthy, getting some tackle help in the second round, very good. Very what they needed to do. I'll give them a B plus.
All right, Raiders. I'm gonna give them a B plus as well. You got Brock Bowers at pick 13, which is best player available. Yes, you drafted Michael Mayer, but Bowers is not your prototypical tight end. He can play in the slot. He can block. He can do literally everything. He's a generational tight end prospect. And I'm very interested to see how they use him there. They could run some 12 personnel, whatever they can do a lot of stuff with him. And then you got Jackson Powers Johnson at pick 44, who I think is phenomenal. He's a great center. He's going to probably start day one, I would assume. He, again, is probably one of the better players in this draft. So the first two rounds, they got probably some of the best players in this draft without position. Then you got Tommy Eichenberg in the fifth round. He kind of fits the Raiders' MO of just like a hard-nosed linebacker. You got some corner depth in round 4 and 7. You got a running back from New Hampshire, who I don't really know much about, but they do need some running backs. So overall, I love their first two picks. So B plus.
I'm gonna go ahead and give these guys a B minus. I mean, I think they had a pretty solid draft, but there are issues here that just weren't addressed. I mean, their quarterback room's terrible. Yeah, Brock Bowers is a great player, but I mean, they just took a tight end last year and they had bigger needs to fill. Like, why are they going best player available when they have the 13th pick and every single defensive player in the draft is still on the board? Like, I don't get that. Obviously, they went heavy on the offensive line for the next 2 rounds, which is great. But I am a little bit confused by this draft. I don't get why. I mean, obviously, Brock Bowers is a top 10 talent. He's a phenomenal player, and he was the best player on the board. But it was not a position of need at all in the slightest. They had several defensive needs, and every player was there. I don't really get that much, but just because Brock Bowers is so dang good, I'll give him a B minus.
Yeah, I think I'm going to split the difference. I'll give him a B. I'm kind of in the middle with the Brock Bowers pick because, like Evan said, he's not a usual tight end, but also like they drafted Michael Mayer last year, who was also a very good tight end. So that is kind of like, yeah, they'll be able to use him in some pretty creative ways, but you didn't really like Weaver said, every single defensive player was still on the board. So not taking a defensive player in that scenario is kind of questionable. I love the Jackson Powers Johnson pick in the second round. They got Tommy Eichenberg in the 5th round, Buckeye linebacker. He could be good for him. Delmar, yeah, like you said, they got a running back from New Hampshire. Never heard of him in my life. Respectfully, I don't know who he is. Delmar Glaze from Maryland, some tackle depth. DeCamerion Richardson from Mississippi State. He was a pretty solid corner for them this past season. They drafted good players, but just not the direction I would have gone if I was in the Raiders front office. So I'll give them a B.
That's how I feel too. They drafted good players. That's why I'm giving them a B minus. But it's just I don't get why they chose those players.
All right, Denver Broncos. I'm going to give them a B. They got Bo Nix at 12. I like Bo Nix on the Broncos, but I think 12 is a little rich. I think Bo Nix is going to do pretty well in Sean Payton's system. They really needed a quarterback because they couldn't go out with Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham. But I think it's a little bit of a reach at 12, but I mean, there were 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 13, which never happened before, so that's kind of crazy. So you kind of were forced to. But and then in the third round, you got Jonah Ellis, who's a good edge rusher. I like him. Troy Franklin in the fourth round, I think, is a steal. Pairing him up with his college quarterback, Bo Nix, I think that's going to prove pretty well for them with Cortland Sutton potentially leaving. I think that's going to help their wide receiver room a lot. I like Chris Abrams drain from Missouri. He was second alongside Ennis Rakestraw. I think he's a phenomenal corner. He's going to bring them good depth to a position that they really need some at. And then Audric Estime in the fifth round, solid running back depth there. So yeah, I think overall they had a solid draft, got some good players. But the Bo Nix pick, I like the pick, but it's a little rich for me, so I'm going to give him a B.
So I'm going to give him a B as well. But I have no complaints with the Bo Nix pick. I think Bo Nix is a solid quarterback. And they were not going to get anyone else if they waited. So they needed a quarterback desperately. I mean, they can't wait. So I don't have a complaint with that pick. Getting Troy Franklin or back with him is awesome as well. I think they had a pretty good draft, honestly. Linebackers and more receivers. I think this was a solid draft, so I'm going to give him a B.
This draft class is very polarizing for me. I think I'm going to give him a C minus. I'm not a Bo Nix guy at all. I'm not a fan of Bo Nix. I think if your calling card for being a quarterback is completion percentage, then it says more about the offense that you play in instead of your ability as a quarterback. Personally. And then after that, Troy Franklin in the fourth round is very good, but Jonah Ellis in the third round is kind of like whatever. Chris Abrams Drain from Missouri. Audric Estime, I thought was a solid pick. It's more about Bo Nix. If Bo Nix pans out, then this draft class will be a lot better, but I'm not high on Bo Nix. So I'm going to give him a C minus.
All right, last team, the LA Chargers. I'm going to give them an A minus. They went Joe Alt at 5. Joe Alt, like we've mentioned, generational tackle. With him now, you have him and Rashad Slater, who are bona fide studs at both tackle positions for the next 10 years. Ladd McConkey in the second round pick, I think he's going to come in and be Justin Herbert's favorite wide receiver immediately. He's a phenomenal route runner, just a guy that quarterbacks love. I think he's going to help that receiver room a lot. And then you got Junior Colson, third round Michigan man. Great linebacker. He already knows hardball pretty well, so I think he's going to do well in that system. Justin Ebogbe from Alabama, good edge rusher as well. And then you got some corner depth with Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart, solid picks. And then you went wide receiver again with Brendan Rice in the 7th round, who is Jerry Rice's son. I think he could be decent. And then Cornelius Johnson as well, again from Michigan. I'm really surprised they didn't draft Blake Corum. I thought that was kind of a lock. But overall, like their draft, first three rounds, I thought they did really well. So A minus for me.
I'm going to also give him an A minus. I'm actually a huge fan of this draft. Joe Alt is a freak of nature. He will be awesome on that offensive line for a Jim Harbaugh offense that is definitely going to be running the football more now. I like Ladd McConkey a lot. I think he'll fit their system well, and I think he's going to step into a receiver room that has literally no one. So that's going to be helpful. Also, I really, really like the Brendan Rice pick in the 7th round. I don't really know why he dropped to the 7th round. I know he's not a phenomenal receiver like Marvin Harrison, but I think Brendan Rice is actually pretty solid. So I like that pick a lot in the 7th round. Michigan linebacker, can't go wrong with that. I really like this draft a lot. I think that the Chargers still have a lot of holes. I'm not expecting them to really be great this year, but I do think they had a good draft, and that'll start the rebuild. So A minus.
I think I'm going to give them an A. I thought they had one of the better drafts in the NFL. Joe Alt at 5. You got Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. There's your tackles for the next 8 years. Joe Alt, unbelievable. Generational prospect at the tackle position. Ladd McConkey, perfect fit for their system. like you said, some corner depth. Brendan Rice in the 7th round, I thought could be one of the steals of the third day. I don't know how he fell in the 7th round, but I think getting him is very, very cool. Junior Colson from Michigan, like you said, Michigan linebacker. Can't really go wrong with him. I think they did a fantastic job. I think that they did exactly what Jim Harbaugh wants to do with this Chargers team. And yeah, they got a lot of solid players. So I'm going to give them an A.
Yes, sir.
All
Good
right.
draft.
Well, that's going to wrap up our 2024 NFL draft grades. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you would grade your favorite team. How do you guys think your favorite team did? And yeah, this will be our we'll have in-person podcasts from here on out as we're all going to be home for the summer.
Summer is here.
Yeah, so that'll
Thank the
we're
good
looking at-
Lord.
have a big summer, so stay tuned for that. And we appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.